single mom waitress gave her breakfast away. That simple act of kindness to a stranger would soon summon a thunderous force into her quiet life, bringing terrifying protection, fierce loyalty, and a second chance at family from the most unlikely brothers. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The rain was a cold, steady curtain the morning Elena met the old man. Her bones ached from the double shift, and the coffee pot felt heavier than her 4-year-old son, Leo, asleep in the back booth. The diner was empty, a grey world of vinyl and chrome. The bell jangled. He stood there, dripping wet, leather vest over a threadbare flannel, patches faded into ghosts of symbols. He wasn't just old, he looked lost, his eyes scanning the room like he was reading a map in a language he'd forgotten. "Sit anywhere, honey," Elena called, forcing the warmth into her voice she saved for customers. He shuffled to a booth by the window, not taking off his jacket. She brought him a menu. He stared at it, upside down. "You okay, sir?" He looked up and his eyes were clear blue oceans, but storm-tossed. My brothers, we were supposed to meet here for the ride to the lake." Elena's heart sank. She knew this look. Her grandmother had worn it. Dementia. The diner was 40 years old. Maybe long ago it had been a meeting spot. "They're running late," she said softly. "Why don't you get warm coffee?" He nodded, a childlike relief on his weathered face. "I'm Mark." "I'm Elena." She brought the coffee. He tried to pay with a bus token from another city. She just smiled. "It's on the house, Mark." An hour passed. He kept watching the door, getting more agitated, muttering about road captains and kickstands up. Leo woke up, padding over in his dinosaur pajamas. He stared at the old biker with wide eyes. Mark looked at Leo. My boy had a dinosaur, a green one." Leo held up his stuffed T-Rex. "This is Chompy." A smile broke across Mark's face, beautiful and heartbreaking. For a moment, he was there, truly present. His stomach growled loudly. Leo giggled. Mark looked embarrassed. Elena's own stomach tightened. Her tips for the week were a handful of change on the counter. The eggs and bacon in the fridge were meant for her and Leo for the next 3 days. She looked at Mark's trembling hands, at the lost hope in his eyes. She looked at Leo, who was now showing Mark how Chompy ate pancakes. She walked back to the kitchen. She cooked 2 eggs sunny side up, 3 strips of bacon, golden toast, a scoop of gritty hash browns. She arranged it carefully on a plate, the way her dad used to like it. When she set it before him, Mark's eyes filled with tears. The club they always said eat up before a long ride. He ate slowly, savoring every bite, a profound calm settling over him. The agitation melted. He told Leo a rambling story about riding through a canyon at sunrise. It almost made sense. When the plate was clean, he was peaceful. He looked out at the thinning rain. I think I took a wrong turn. I should get home." Elena's throat closed. "Where's home, Mark?" He just patted his vest over his heart. "With my brothers." He stood, steady now. He walked to the door, then turned. He looked right at her, and his eyes were crystal clear, lucid in a way that felt like a blessing. "Thank you for the breakfast, darling, and for the peace. I won't forget it." He left. The bell jangled. Elena never expected to see him again. She cleared his plate, feeling a pang for her lost groceries, but a warmer feeling for the peace she'd given. 2 weeks crawled by, bills piled up. Her beat-up sedan coughed and died outside the grocery store. Leo's 5th birthday was in 10 days, and his big wish was for a party with superheroes and a cake, a wish she knew she couldn't grant. The child support from her ex, David, was 6 months missing. Life was a mountain of can't. Then a Thursday, the diner was quiet. Suddenly, the world outside began to roar, not one motorcycle, not 10, dozens, a thunder that shook the plates on the tables. Leo scrambled to the window. "Mommy, dragons." Elena's blood went cold. It was a sea of leather, denim, and steel rolling into the tiny parking lot filling the street. These weren't weekend riders. These were hard men with scars, tattoos, and a quiet, dangerous authority. They moved like a single organism, parking in perfect lines. The lead bike, a massive chrome Harley, was ridden by a man with a sultan pepper beard and eyes that missed nothing. He dismounted, his cut-off vest gleaming with patches, the president's rocker clear. His name was James. 59 of them. They filed into her diner, a wall of leather and quiet intention. The air left the room. Other customers froze. Elena pushed Leo gently behind the counter, her heart hammering. James walked up to her. He didn't smile. He took off his sunglasses. "You're Elena." It wasn't a question. She could only nod, gripping the counter edge. "You served a man named Mark 2 weeks ago. Breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast, hash browns. You talked to him. You were kind." Elena's mind raced. Was this trouble? Had she done something wrong? Yes, he was lost. He was hungry. James's stern face did something strange. It softened just at the edges. He looked down for a second, gathering himself. When he looked up, his eyes were bright. "He was our brother, our founder. He's been missing for 3 weeks. We searched everywhere. He had dementia. He'd wander, reliving the old days." He paused, the weight of it in the silent diner. "He came home that night, the night you fed him. He was clear. He was at peace. He sat with us at the clubhouse, told us about a beautiful angel at a diner who fed him and a little boy with a dinosaur. He said it was the best meal he'd ever had. He went to sleep." James's voice grew thick. "And he didn't wake up, passed in his sleep, peacefully." A collective, low sigh went through the men in the diner, a sound of grief and respect. James continued, his last clear wish, his final order. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his vest. It was a child's drawing of a cake and superheroes. "He heard your boy talking about his birthday. Heard you say you could, he told us. The boy gets his party, the angel gets her thanks. So we're here." Elena's hands flew to her mouth. Tears blurred the terrifying, beautiful sight of 59 hardened bikers crammed into her shop. "We're not just throwing a party, Elena," James said, his voice low and earnest. "We are fulfilling a debt, a club debt, and we take that seriously, for Mark." That was the start. That Saturday, they took over the closed diner. It wasn't a party, it was a military operation with balloons. A giant named Paul, who looked like he could crush cars, assembled a bounce house with terrifying efficiency. His thick fingers tying balloon animals with shocking delicacy for Leo. A wiry, clever-eyed man named Daniel hung streamers, his arms covered in intricate tattoo schematics. He winked at Elena, "Used to do event planning, before my other career." The party was epic. Superheroes, bikers in costume shirts, looking ridiculous and menacing, played games. A cake the size of a tire arrived. Leo was in heaven, riding on James's shoulders, declaring him the king bike man. As twilight fell, the party wound down. Elena, overwhelmed, tried to thank James. He shook his head. This was the easy part, the first installment. "What do you mean?" she asked. The next morning, her dead car was gone from the lot. By afternoon, it was back, purring like a kitten. A grizzled man with grease permanently etched into his skin, named Mick, tossed her the keys. Fuel pump, new plugs, oil change, brakes were shot, all fixed. "I can't pay you," Elena stammered. "Paid for by the club," Mick grunted. "Mark's fund. You need a real mechanic on call, you call me." He handed her a card with just a phone number and a wrench logo. The following Wednesday, a man in a sharp, expensive leather jacket walked into the diner. He had a lawyer's eyes. His name was Simon. "Elena, a word." He presented a file. It was legal paperwork against David, her ex, motion for contempt, garnishment of wages, the works. "I've filed these. He'll be served today. My firm is handling it." "You're a lawyer." "Was a corporate lawyer. Now I handle the club's business. Consider this my pro bono work for Mark. Don't worry, he'll pay." A week later, David showed up at the diner, furious. He slammed in, pointing a finger at Elena behind the counter. "You think you can sick your biker boyfriends on me, you little..." He didn't finish. Daniel and Paul, who happened to be sipping coffee at the counter, swiveled on their stools. They didn't stand up. They didn't say a word. They just looked at him. The air went out of the room again, but this time it was cold and sharp. David's bravado evaporated. He looked from the two silent, watching men to Elena. Paul slowly cracked his knuckles. It sounded like popcorn in the quiet. "You'll have the check by Friday," David squeaked, backing out of the door. Elena let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Daniel gave her a small, reassuring nod. The biggest change came from a bear of a man named Bear, ironically. He was the club's cook, a culinary genius who'd done time for a heated disagreement with a health inspector. He tasted Elena's homemade chili one afternoon and grunted, "You're using canned beans, a crime." The next day he showed up with a giant pot and fresh ingredients. "Weekend brunch shift. We split the profits 70-30, you take the 70, my tribute to Mark." Bear Outlaw Benedict and Sinner's Pancakes became legend. Lines snaked around the block on Saturdays and Sundays. Elena's income tripled in a month. The diner was suddenly the place to be. But it wasn't just the help, it was the presence. James would come in on quiet evenings, drinking coffee, asking about Leo, about the business. Their talks were charged with something unspoken. He was a king in a violent world, but with her he was just James, careful, attentive, his eyes holding hers a second too long. Once his hand brushed hers, reaching for the sugar, and a static jolt passed between them, a promise of heat that made her face flush. It was thrilling, dangerous, and safe all at once. They became fixtures. Paul taught Leo how to change a tire, life skill kid. Daniel fixed her leaking sink and installed a security system with extras. Mick did regular tune-ups. They weren't just helping, they were integrating. One night after closing, James stayed behind. He helped her wipe down the booths. "You've done something to us, Elena, to the club, Mark's last act. It reminded us of what we started as, a brotherhood, a family, not just an empire." He leaned against the counter close to her. "He chose you. In his last clear moment, he chose you and Leo. So we choose you too. You're under our protection. You're part of the tribe now, our sister. Leo is our nephew." The word protection hung in the air, heavy with meaning. It wasn't just a word. It was a wall between her and the world's cruelty. It was also a tether to a world of shadows. Elena looked around her thriving diner, thought of her full fridge, her working car, Leo's laughter, the terrifying, loyal men who now filled her life with a chaotic, fierce safety. She thought of the quiet, lost old man she'd fed. She looked at James, at the strength and danger in him, and the unexpected tenderness in his eyes. Her voice was a whisper. "What does being in the tribe mean?" James smiled, a rare, full smile that transformed his face. "It means family dinners are on Sundays at the clubhouse. Leo gets a cut of his own, a tiny one. It means you never eat alone. It means if anyone ever looks at you wrong, 59 uncles have a very serious problem. And it means..." He reached out slowly and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his calloused fingers gentle against her skin. "It means we take care of our own. Forever." Outside, the moon glinted off the rows of polished chrome. The Empire hadn't given up anything. It had simply expanded its borders to include a tired waitress and her son. And in doing so, it had found a piece of its soul it thought it had lost, all because of a simple plate of eggs and bacon given to a lost king on a rainy morning. Life settled into a new, extraordinary rhythm. Sundays at the clubhouse were loud, raucous affairs. Leo raced around the garage on a tiny electric motorcycle Paul had modified, weaving between the towering Harleys. Elena, initially nervous, found herself laughing at the crude jokes and feeling a security she hadn't known since childhood. These men, with their violent histories and strict code, treated her with an old-fashioned, protective reverence. Chemistry with James was a slow, constant burn. He never overstepped, always a gentleman, but the tension was a live wire. He'd linger when helping her carry supplies, his presence at her back warm and solid. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. He told her about building the club from a garage gang into a legitimate, mostly business empire with auto shops, bars, and security contracts. She told him about her dreams of maybe, one day, owning the diner building instead of renting. "Consider it done," he said once, matter-of-factly. "James, no, that's too much. I need to do some things myself." He looked at her, impressed. "Okay, but the offer stands. The tribe invests in its own." One rainy Thursday evening, the diner was empty. Bear was prepping in the back. Leo was with Daniel, who was teaching him chess, likely also teaching him how to pick a lock, Elena suspected. James came in, shaking water from his leather jacket. He didn't sit at the counter. He walked behind it, took the coffee pot from her hand, and filled 2 mugs. "Break," he said, his voice low. They sat in a back booth, away from the windows. The rain pattered against the glass. For a while, they just sat in comfortable silence. "You scare me sometimes," Elena said softly, not looking at him. James stilled. "How?" "Not like that, it's just this life, your world. It's so big and so final. What happens when a rival club doesn't like you protecting a diner? What happens when the police look too close?" He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. His hand was huge, scarred, but his touch was gentle. "Listen to me, that's my world to manage. Your world is here with Leo, with this place. My job is to make sure my world never bleeds into yours. We have rules, lines that diner counter." He nodded toward the front. "That's the line. Nothing crosses that line to you. That's the promise I made to Mark's memory, and to myself." His thumb stroked the back of her hand. The touch sent shivers up her arm. "And the police," he continued. "We are legitimate businessmen, mostly. You just have very loyal customers." She finally looked at him. "And us, what's this, James?" His blue eyes darkened. "This is whatever you want it to be, Elena. I'm not a good man by most people's books, but for you, I want to be. I can be patient, but I won't lie, I want you. I have since the day I walked in here and saw you standing your ground against 59 of us. You've got a spine of steel." He leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "Let me take you to dinner. A real dinner, not here, somewhere with cloth napkins. Let Daniel watch Leo." It was the most dangerous offer she'd ever received, and the most thrilling. She nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. "Okay." The date was a week later. He picked her up in a sleek, black SUV, not a motorcycle. He wore a dark button-down shirt that strained over his shoulders, no vest. He looked like a powerful executive, but the edge was still there in his eyes, in the way he moved. The restaurant was expensive, quiet. He pulled out her chair, listened intently to her stories. He talked about his love for classic motorcycles, the mechanics of an engine, the freedom of the open road. It was passionate, intelligent. Driving home, he parked a block from her apartment. The street was quiet. "I'm not coming up," he said, his hands tight on the steering wheel. "Not tonight." "Why not?" The question slipped out, bold. He turned to her, the streetlights casting shadows on his face. "Because if I come up, I won't leave. And you need to be sure, really sure, what you're inviting in isn't just a man, Elena. It's the club, it's the life, it's forever." He cupped her face then, his touch burning. He leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a gentle first kiss. It was a claiming, a promise, and a question all at once. It was full of pent-up want and a terrifying tenderness. Her world narrowed to the feel of his lips, the scratch of his beard, the sheer size of him. When he pulled away, they were both breathing heavily. "Be sure," he repeated, his forehead resting against hers. She was trembling. "I'm scared." "So am I," he admitted, shocking her. "I've got more to lose now than ever before." It was that admission that undid her. The king was afraid for her. She kissed him this time, sealing the deal. He did come up, and he didn't leave. The new normal was blissful and complicated. James stayed over most nights, his boots by her door, his cut hanging on her chair. The club's protection became even more personal, but the outside world began to notice. A rival club, the Vipers, had been sniffing around the edges of James's territory for months. They were younger, reckless, involved in things James's club had moved away from. They saw the constant presence of James's men at a simple diner as a sign of weakness or a juicy, unprotected target. One Tuesday afternoon, 2 Viper prospects, skinny kids trying to look tough, swaggered in. The diner was full of regulars, including old Mrs. Henderson from down the street. "Place looks cozy," one sneered loudly. "Heard the food's good. Heard the owners got special protection." Bear was in the kitchen. Elena felt a chill. She put on her best waitress smile. "Sit anywhere, boys. I'll be right with you." They purposely took a table just cleaned by Lucy, the high school girl who worked part-time. One of them leered at her. "Hey, sweetheart." Lucy flushed, uncomfortable. Paul was in his usual corner booth, reading the paper. He didn't look up, but his presence was like a boulder in the stream. The prospects glanced at him, puffed their chests, but didn't engage. When Elena brought their menus, one of them grabbed her wrist. Not hard, but possessive. "We'll have 2 burgers. and maybe your number." Before she could yank away, a shadow fell over the table. Paul was there. He hadn't moved fast, he'd just appeared. He placed one massive hand on the prospect's shoulder. His voice was calm, quiet, and deadly. "You're touching the lady, you're scaring the help, you're in our place, 3 mistakes. You got 10 seconds to pay for your coffee and leave. Clock starts now." The prospect let go of Alina like her skin was on fire. Paul's grip didn't look tight, but the kid's face went pale. They fumbled cash onto the table and practically ran out. Paul turned to Alina. "You okay, sis?" She nodded, rubbing her wrist. "Thanks, Paul." He gave a single nod. "Gotta make a call." He walked outside. 20 minutes later, James's SUV screeched to a halt outside. He, Daniel, and Simon, the lawyer, walked in. James went straight to Alina, his eyes scanning her. "Did they hurt you?" "No, just scared me." Paul handled it. James's jaw was tight. He looked at the table where they'd sat, then at the door. He walked over to Mrs. Henderson. "You all right, ma'am? Sorry for the disturbance." "Oh, I'm fine, dear," she said, patting his arm. "Those ruffians." James gave a tight smile. He motioned to Daniel and Simon. They huddled in the back. Alina caught snippets. "Send a clear message. Territorial lines. Legal front is clean, but..." That night at the clubhouse, the mood was serious. Alina was in the kitchen with Bear, helping with food for the meeting. She heard the raised voices from the chapel, the members-only room. "We can't look weak, James," one voice argued. "They put hands on her, in our place." "And we answer," James's voice cut through, calm and cold. "But we answer smart. Simon, the properties." Simon's smoother voice replied, "The Vipers' clubhouse is leased. Their main garage is behind on taxes. We can put pressure through the city, buy the debt." "Good, Daniel." "Their VP has a little sister. In college, clean. We make sure she gets an anonymous scholarship to study far away. He'll get the message about keeping family out of it." James spoke again. "Paul, you find the 2 prospects. Have a chat, not here, on neutral ground. Explain the new rules. The diner, Alina, Leo, Lucy, they're all off limits. They are sky. You don't touch the sky, make it poetic." Paul's grunt was assent. Alina leaned against the kitchen wall, her heart pounding. This was the other side, the strategic, ruthless side. They weren't just going to have a brawl. They were going to dismantle the threat, piece by piece, legally and otherwise. It was far more terrifying. Later in James's office, a room filled with ledgers, not guns, he found her. "You heard." "Yes. I told you I'd keep the worlds separate. I'm trying. But sometimes, to protect your world, I have to move in mine. I need you to trust me." "I do," she whispered. And she did. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with a fierce, protective love for this man and his chaotic, loyal family. The next few weeks were a silent war. The Vipers' garage was suddenly hit with a pile of code violations. Their noise permits for parties were denied. The 2 prospects were found unharmed but shaken, their bikes mysteriously missing all their bolts. The message was received. Peace returned, but it was a heavier peace. One afternoon, Leo was at the clubhouse garage with Mick. Alina was balancing the books at the diner counter. James walked in, a rolled-up paper in his hand. He looked nervous. "What is it?" she asked. He unrolled it. It was an architectural drawing for a 2-story building. The bottom was a beautiful, expanded diner with Bear's name on the kitchen. The top was a spacious apartment, big windows, a balcony, a room labeled Leo's Lair. "It's the lot next door," James said, his voice rough. "We bought it, the club, it's an investment. The tribe needs a proper home base this side of town. This could be it. You and Leo upstairs, the diner below, safe, ours." Alina stared at the drawing. A home, a real home, built by them, for them, the final, permanent weaving of their lives together. Tears filled her eyes. "James, it's too much." "It's everything," he corrected. Mark saw a moment of kindness. "We're building a lifetime from it. Say yes." She looked from the drawing of the sunny apartment to the man before her, a man who commanded an empire but whose happiness now hinged on her answer. She thought of the lost old biker, the plate of food, the thunder of 59 engines changing her life. She walked around the counter and into his arms, leaning into the solid, safe strength of him. She smelled leather and coffee and home. Yes. Outside, the sun glinted off the chrome of a passing motorcycle. It wasn't an end. It was a beginning. The empire hadn't fallen. It had simply found its heart, and it was beating, strong and steady, right here in a little diner, waiting to be built into something beautiful and unbreakable. Construction began the next month. The empty lot next to the diner, once just weeds and cracked concrete, became a hive of controlled chaos. It was a club project. Mick oversaw the plumbing and electrical with a terrifying precision. Paul, with his surprising knack for geometry, helped frame the walls. Even Daniel, the schemer, proved to be a whiz with the building permit bureaucracy, smoothing over inspections with a smile and the occasional veiled suggestion that it was in the city's best interest to see this project succeed. Elena and Leo spent their days between the noisy, bustling diner and the even noisier construction site. Leo had a tiny hard hat and would supervise, carrying nails, blunt ones for Paul. The men, these hardened outlaws, treated the building of this home with a reverence usually reserved for church or a custom bike build. It was their monument to Mark, their promise made solid in wood and steel. The blending of lives wasn't always smooth. There were club runs James had to go on, overnight trips for business Elena didn't ask about. She'd lie awake, listening for the roar of his bike returning, the knot in her stomach only loosening when she heard his key in the lock and felt him slide into bed beside her, smelling of night air and road. One night he came back later than usual, a fresh, thin cut on his knuckles. He saw her looking, he didn't lie. The Viper's VP needed a final conversation about boundaries. It's settled now, for good. He said it flatly. A statement of fact. The violence of his world had brushed close, but he had kept his promise. It hadn't crossed the threshold. The cut was his, not hers, not Leo's. She took his hand, cleaned the cut, and bandaged it, her silence, her acceptance. The building rose, a physical symbol of their merged worlds. Elena's favorite part was the big kitchen in the new apartment. James had insisted on it. "Bear's gonna teach you his pancake recipe," he'd said, grinning. "Tribe's secret. You're in, so you get to learn." As the walls went up, so did the scrutiny. The success of the diner, the sudden construction, the constant presence of the club, it drew eyes. A local news reporter, a slick man named Carl, started nosing around, asking questions about biker influence and community safety. He tried to interview Mrs. Henderson. The old woman fixed him with a steely gaze. "Young man, before those boys came, I was scared to walk here after dark. Now, I know Paul is in booth 4 every morning at 7, and Daniel walks me to the bus stop if it's raining. You tell me what influence that is." The reporter left, frustrated, but the threat of exposure was a low, constant hum. The final challenge came not from a rival club or a reporter, but from within the tangled web of the past. Elena's ex, David, emboldened by a new girlfriend and furious about the wage garnishment Simon had enforced, decided to fight for custody of Leo. He hired a shark of a lawyer who filed motions claiming Elena's environment was dangerous and immoral, citing her association with a known motorcycle club. The papers were served at the diner on a busy Friday. Elena's world tilted. This was her deepest fear, using her son as a weapon. James was out of town on club business. She called Simon in a panic. "Breathe, Elena," Simon's voice was cool, logical. "This is what I do. He has no grounds, but we need to be smart. We need to show the court a picture of stability, family, and support, not a club, a family." When James returned, he was a storm. Elena had never seen him so coldly angry. "He touches a hair on Leo's head, I'll." "No," Elena said, firm, surprising herself. "That's what he wants. That's the danger he's talking about. We do this Simon's way, the tribe's way, the smart way." James stared at her, the fury slowly banked by her resolve. He nodded, respect in his eyes. "Okay, your call. The tribe stands with you." The court date loomed. Simon prepared Elena meticulously. He had character statements from Mrs. Henderson, from Lucy, from the diner's regulars. He had financial records showing her thriving business. He had proof of David's delinquent support and a police report from years ago about a drunken shouting match. The day before the hearing, James gathered the core members at the nearly finished apartment. "Tomorrow, we're not a club. We're Alina's family. We dress like we're going to a funeral for a banker. We sit quietly. We are pillars of the community. Understood?" The next morning, the courthouse hallway looked like a convention of unusually muscular, intensely well-dressed businessmen. James in a tailored navy suit, his beard trimmed. Paul looking profoundly uncomfortable in a jacket and tie, his bulk making the seams strain. Daniel, sleek and loyally himself. Mick, Simon, even bare, in a surprisingly well-fitted shirt. They stood in a silent, imposing line. David and his lawyer arrived. David smirked when he saw Alina, then his eyes traveled to the wall of men behind her. The smirk died. His lawyer paled slightly. In the courtroom, the judge, a stern older woman, listened to David's lawyer paint a picture of outlaw terror. Then Simon stood. "Your Honor, my client's social circle is just that, a circle of friends, a community. I'd like to call a character witness, Mr. James Miller." James took the stand, swore in. Under Simon's questioning, he spoke not as a club president, but as a business owner, auto shops, security consulting. He spoke of community outreach, of his respect for Alina as a business partner and a mother. He spoke of Leo with a genuine warmth that couldn't be faked. "He's a good kid. We just want to provide him with a safe, loving environment." The judge asked, "Mr. Miller, what is the nature of your club?" James met her gaze squarely. "It's a fraternal organization, Your Honor, founded on principles of brotherhood, loyalty, and community support. We ride motorcycles together. We also run businesses, pay our taxes, and look out for our neighbors, like any family." It was masterful. He wasn't hiding, he was reframing. When David's lawyer tried to cross-examine, trying to bait James into revealing the darker side, James remained calm, polite, and vague. "I'm not sure I understand the question. My personal history is not relevant to Ms. Alina's fitness as a mother." He was a rock. The judge called for a short recess. In the hallway, David tried to approach Alina. Paul took one subtle step forward, blocking his path. He didn't say a word, he just looked at David. David backed away. When they reconvened, the judge's ruling was swift. She dismissed David's petition entirely. She commended Alina on her strong support system and thriving business, and chastised David for his frivolous and malicious use of the court. She made the garnishment permanent and increased his child support. It was a total victory. Outside the courthouse, under the gray sky, Alina threw her arms around James. He held her tight, burying his face in her hair. "It's over," he murmured. "No," she whispered back, looking at the men around her, her strange, wonderful, fierce family. "It's just beginning." The new building was finished in the spring. The grand opening of the expanded Mark's Diner was a block party. The whole neighborhood came. Mrs. Henderson cut the ribbon. The club members, back in their cuts, but on their best behavior, served food and drinks alongside Alina and Leo. It was a celebration of community, a testament to an unlikely family. That night, after the last guest left, Alina and James stood on the balcony of their new apartment. Leo was asleep in his big boy room, Chompy the dinosaur on the pillow beside him. Below, the diner sign glowed warmly in the dark. James's arms were around her from behind. "He'd be proud, you know, Mark." Alina leaned back into him. "I just gave him breakfast." "You gave him peace," James corrected softly, "and he gave us a purpose. We were an empire building walls. Now we're a family building a home." He turned her to face him. In the moonlight, he looked younger, the harsh lines of his face softened. He didn't get down on one knee, that wasn't his style. He just held both her hands, his thumbs stroking her palms. "Alina, you and Leo, you're my heart, my territory, my greatest ride. Will you marry me? Not the club president, just me, a man who loves you more than his next breath." Tears streamed down her face, happy. Free tears. The lost waitress, the single mom struggling to make ends meet, was gone. In her place was a woman loved, protected, and powerful in her own right. Yes, she said, always yes. He kissed her, and it tasted like the future. Down in the quiet diner, a single-place setting remained on the counter by the window, a cup of coffee, a plate with a single piece of bacon, a silent tribute to the lost old biker who started it all. Outside, the wind whispered through the street, carrying the distant, fadding echo of motorcycle thunder, now a part of the town's heartbeat. The empire hadn't fallen. It had simply come home. Thank you for watching. Have you ever had a small act of kindness come back to you in a way you never imagined? Subscribe and share your own story of unexpected kindness in the comments below. Where in the world are you watching from?